seminar on cybercrime and its impact on society. The year was 1962. A hit cartoon made its debut, The Jetsons. Not only was it funny, but it presented its audience with a futurist view of life. It was the first time we saw camera phones, smart watches, and 3D technology. As destiny would have it, we have moved from the payphone and home phone to debates about which phone is more superior, iPhone or Android. Fast forward to 2020, the COVID pandemic forced us into a new normal: online meetings and classes, virtual parties, and live streaming of funerals. We can now catch up with family and friends via social media and conduct business online. Everything's now at our fingertips, just like on the Jetsons. But there's an ugly truth. Criminals have been finding new ways to disrupt the cyber world. Hacking, scamming, extortion, sextortion are just a few of the types of cyber crimes. According to dataprot.net, the cost of cybercrime on the world's economy is close to $6 trillion. Here in Jamaica, we have enacted legislation to tackle this issue, a good first step, but arguably, we still have some way to go. It's why discussions like these are important to have as we try to bring awareness to this critical problem. As students of Cohort 18 of the College of Graduate Studies and Research, we thought it prudent to have this discussion with you today so that we can take the necessary steps to safeguard ourselves and plan appropriate strategies to not become victims of cybercrime. Each presenter here today will provide us with critical information on varying sectors, such as education, banking, and digital marketing, which are high target areas for cybercrime. So I ask you to stay alert, to be prepared to receive these presentations. Thank you. My teammate, Troy Whittingham, will now share the welcome and acknowledgements.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Let me first introduce to you members of Cyber Secure Consultants. First, we have Mrs. Kellyanne Dixon, Mr. Asifa Erskine, Mr. Kirk Edwards, Miss Veronica Weber, Miss Juliana Dacrick, Mrs. Tracy Ann Grant Blake, Miss Anita Rambali, Mrs. Christine Bruce, Miss Kay Francis, Miss Andrea Wanlis, and yours truly, Troy Whittingham. We also want to recognize Professor Dennis Gale, Chancellor of the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean. Dr. Winston Adams, Group Executive Chairman. Mrs. Geraldine Adams, Deputy Group Executive Chairman. Dr. Donald Rooms, Chairman for the Board of Directors. Dr. Haldane Davies, President of the University. Dr. Evan Dawkins, Associate Vice President of Academic and Students Affairs. Mrs. Diane Boyd, Director of Administration and Student Services at the School of Graduate Studies, Mrs. Angela Walker Cabri, that's the pronounce, Quality Assurance Manager. Last but not least, Dr. Gwyneth Jackson, lecturer in the field of market management and strategy. We also want to recognize our keynote speaker, Lieutenant Colonel Godphey Sterling, Head of Cyber Incident Response Team in the Ministry of Science, Energy, and Technology. Likewise, other guest presenters, Mr. Delroy Scott, Mrs. Kelleen Brown, and Mr. Ricardo Higgins. We also want to acknowledge and welcome our in-house audience, as well as our online viewers, both locally and overseas. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome. Good evening and welcome again, everybody, to our seminar on cybersecurity. Natawa Tafari Dixon is the first of 7 children for his father and the first of 4 for his mother. Mr. Dixon hailed from the rustic farming community called Buxton Town on the outskirts of Linstead. Natawa attended the Dintil Technical High School, where he studied agriculture. Natawa has a Bachelor of Science in Security Administration and Management from the Caribbean Maritime University. A career in security professional, he recently marked 22 years in the industry and is one of Jamaica's few port security specialists. In his current role, Natawa is the Corporate Security Manager at the Jamaica Civil Aviation and Port Authority. In his spare time, Natawa can be found hiking, camping, at the gym, or reading a book. Natawa is currently writing for his master's and is keen on writing a book or 2. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming our moderator, Mr. Natawa Dixon.
It is said that the first recorded cybercrime took place in the year 1820 when a French textile manufacturer produced the first loom. And this device allowed the repetition of a series of steps in the weaving of special fabrics. This resulted in a fear among his employees that they would lose their jobs and their livelihood. They committed acts of sabotage to discourage the textile manufacturer from further use of the new technology. This is said to be the first recorded cyber crime. Lecturers and administrators of the UCCA, Colonel Godphey Sterling, Mr. Delroy Scott, Mrs. Kelleen Brown, Mr. Ricardo Higgins, members of the Master's Degree Cohort 28, other distinguished guests, and to those in the cyber space, good afternoon. I am Natawa Dixon, and mine is the fulfilling task this evening of guiding you through what promises to be a stimulating and fulfilling afternoon. It is our fervent hope that when you leave here today, your ask will change. your ask, your attitude, your skill, and your knowledge. Cyber crime is one of the new and emerging trends in our world, and it is something that we have to deal with. I am one of those persons who believe wholeheartedly that awareness is important. And Colonel, you will agree with me that increasingly there is an umbilical link between physical security and cyber security, as most of our physical security platforms now depend a whole lot on the cyber platforms. Everything is now on a server and so on. So it is important that we make that link between physical and cyber security. Before we move on into the evening's proceedings, I must pause to recognize the major sponsors, Mr. Vincent Lewis, BCMG Insurance Brokers, GK General Insurance, Honeybun, and Wesinco. Please give them a round of applause. At this moment, I am going to call upon Mrs. Christine Bruce, who is going to introduce the evening's keynote speaker.
Good afternoon. Lieutenant Colonel Godphey O. Sterling. Colonel Sterling served in the Jamaica Defense Force for more than 24 years in a number of staff and command roles. 15 of those years were spent in various ICT and cyber-related roles. During that time, he worked with the MITRE Corporation and United States Southern Command to create the Caribbean Information Sharing Network, leading to its technical working group from 1998 to 2007. This facility morphed over the years into what is now known as the Cyber Cooperation and Intelligence Information Exchange System. He led or participated in the project teams that were responsible for all major technology changes in the JDF between 1998 and 2019, culminating in the drafting of the JDF Strategic Defense Review 2018. Most recently, he served as the Deputy Managing Director of Operations at the state-owned Jamaica Urban Transit Company, where he spearheaded the company's response to the COVID-19 pandemic by designing and implementing the JUTC's contagious virus response. As head of the Jamaica Cyber Incident Response Team, he has day-to-day responsibility for the management of Jamaica's non-law enforcement cyber incident response capability. Additionally, he and his team triage, categorize, refer, respond to, and document cyber incidents on the government's behalf. Among his qualifications, Lieutenant Colonel Sterling holds certificates in cybersecurity from the U.S. Army War College, a diploma in systems automation from the U.S. Army Signal School, a bachelor's degree with honors in computer science from the University of Technology, and a master's in defense studies from the Royal Military College of Canada. An avid reader and sports enthusiast, he enjoys the outdoors as well as solitude and a good book. He is the father of 2 sons, Keon and Aviai, and a daughter, Gia Renee. Ladies and gentlemen, help me to welcome Lieutenant Colonel Sterling.
Good afternoon, all. It is one of the phrases that I really dislike using, which is to say all protocols observed. But after an introduction like that, I believe I will break with my own tradition and simply say all protocols observed as I try to deliver on the charge that you have given to me today. It was Voltaire who said that every man is a creature of the times in which he lives, and few are able to raise themselves above the ideas of the time. Cybersecurity and cybercrimes are interlinked in such an intrinsic way that to distinguish between them today is becoming increasingly difficult. The pandemic not only foisted upon us an age of hyperdigitization, but it also meant that a lot more of our lives were lived online. From mixed modalities for work to mixed modalities for learning, we have established what is essentially a new normal that is based almost entirely on the internet and cyberspace. Cybercrimes refer to those activities committed through the use of a digital device or the internet that essentially goes against societal norms or actual enacted legislation. What it means is that in putting a lot more of our lives, times, and persons online, we have created what we call an increased attack surface for cyber criminals to utilize. The question we're here to ask ourselves today, and hopefully I'll be able to answer it to some extent, is what is the impact of all of this activity in cyberspace by just about everybody on society? I could speak for weeks without even breaking step and not be able to cover all of that. But for today, I'm going to constrain myself to dealing with three basic points. If we look at cybercrime as being defined as any illegal activity that is facilitated through the use of a digital medium, whether it is a disconnected or an interconnected device, then we can look at society as being consisting of three basic groups: the individual, the body corporate, and what we call in cybersecurity, critical infrastructure. The impact of cybercrime on the individual can be deleterious in many ways, shape, and form. When we think about how online learning became a mainstay of our daily lives, and we got used to the terms such as Zoom bombing, we think about how cybercrimes have impacted our ability to learn. When we think about how students no longer, if they choose to, have to sit for a degree, but can simply pay a couple dollars per page to get a thesis written, and the ability of cyber criminals to make it look as though the work came from the individual or to forge certificates, then we start to get an understanding of the magnitude of cybercrimes on individual lives. We have to appreciate that cybercrimes affects everyone. And I want to spend just a minute and talk about cybercrimes that affect children. Cyberbullying. Now, cyberbullying is not restricted to children. However, they are most vulnerable to the effects of it. And what we find is that this version of cybercriminal activity has the ability to psychologically damage a large portion of our population. Think about what you as individuals do online, from shopping for that nice Prada or Louis V to banking and other business type activities. Cybercrimes have ensured that if you are paying attention, you have become a lot more circumspect to how you treat with your activities in cyberspace and what you share. Take it one step further. And as the first speaker spoke about sextortion and extortion, we think about malicious communications using cyberspace and we think about revenge porn. Things like this are crimes that affect the individual in such a way that persons, had there been an alternative, would seek to move away from using the internet and being in cyberspace. The body corporate, or businesses as we like to think of it, whether in the public or private sector, is not immune to the effects of cybercrime. In fact, cybercriminal activities are amplified when they occur against a business. But the business does not exist on its own. It really treats with what you, the individual, bring to the workplace. Now, you might say the workplace has changed because of the effects of the pandemic and just the growth of technology and its dispersion, its adoption, and the penetration through society in Jamaica on a daily basis. There are 3.08 million concurrent connections to the internet. But when you look at it, there is only about 970,000 registered owners of an internet service that is provided legitimately. And so what you realize is that more and more persons are having multiple connections to the internet. And when you take this into the business place, there are certain things that affect you, from scams such as phishing, where you're actually courted through social engineering practices to give up your credentials or to click on links that compromises your business. We find that more and more the business becomes susceptible to being a victim of cybercrimes based on the activities of the individual. In fact, research has shown that more than 70% of all cybercrime starts with an internal participant that either unwittingly or maliciously helped to compromise the network. So what this means is that businesses have taken, in some cases, a zero trust approach to how you access their resources. But we all appreciate that where security from a cyber standpoint is concerned, the brick and mortar perimeter that we're used to has disappeared. What we have is a security perimeter that stretches as far as your most remote workup. So it means that your security practitioners are no longer able to stay in a single room and just monitor what is happening within a building or a set of interconnected buildings. But they now have to take into consideration what you are using at home to connect into the network that you need to work. And so the whole concept of using virtual private networks or VPNs come into play. What we have seen is that it makes businesses a little bit more paranoid. And think about your banks. Just recently, you would have heard about Sagicor, you've heard about JMMB, you've heard about NCB, and the activities of persons within those institutions that cause the loss of funds for clients. Now, what it means is that if the banks are going to maintain their reputation, they have to take drastic action. And so things like know your customer becomes very onerous for persons who are actually operating legitimately. But it becomes necessary because entities have to secure themselves against the effects of cybercrime. Within government, it is no different. And we saw the passing of the Data Protection Act of 2020, where there is now not only a desire by the business to secure it itself, but an obligation under this piece of legislation for it to take all reasonable steps to secure the data that it collects, especially personally identifiable information. What this means is that the cost of doing business goes up and it gets translated into a cost that you must pay. It also means that businesses are less likely to be lenient when certain things happen with respect to their email compromise or other impacts of cybercrime within this structure. So from a business standpoint, whether you're in the public or private sector, the effects of cybercrimes means that there are more stringent security measures. And as the moderator spoke to, the intrinsic link between physical security and cybersecurity as we seek to defeat cyber criminals is one that cannot be ignored. When you think about it, how many of you have a proxy or other access cards to the building in which you work? How many times do you stop to hold the door for someone who is right next to you? But how many times do you stop to ask yourself the question, does this person belong in the building? Should this person be here? It is a thing we call tailgating in cybersecurity, but what it does is allow unauthorized physical access, which can lead to any number of cybersecurity related issues. And so more and more as we become cybersecurity aware and the impacts of cybercrime become more visible, we're taking greater precautions. We're becoming less physically social, a little bit more social media social and cybersecurity social, but we're really becoming almost paranoid when we think about the fact that the person next to us could have a scanner in their pockets that's stealing our credit card information. Or that we cannot trust any email that comes to us from a source we don't know, and really you shouldn't. And so that level of hyperparanoia really leads to sometimes reduced productivity in the workplace. On the government side, government is forced now to create legislation that really sort of curtails the freedoms of people in cyberspace. A lot of what we do with our cybercrimes legislation here in Jamaica is based on the Convention on Cybercrime, more commonly known as the Budapest Convention. But what it seeks to do is to standardize what we determine to be a cybercrime, how we treat with it, and what are some of the penalties that are there. The Cybercrimes Act of 2015 is something that is critical to our daily existence. And as you are aware, there is a review of it currently on by a joint select committee of parliament. What this means is that there are stiffer penalties coming for breaches in the near future. Now, when we think about critical infrastructure, what we're really talking about are those pieces of infrastructure in our society without which daily lives become almost unbearable, or daily living stops, or is changed in such a way that you cannot continue per normal. But critical infrastructure is not immune from cybercrimes. And so what we find is that for a lot of cyber criminals, they tend to target these pieces of infrastructure so that they can commit extortion, so that they can commit terrorist acts. And the end result is sometimes panic within societies. Here in Jamaica, our society does not really suffer so much from cyber terrorism, but in other parts of the world, it is a real, a clear and present danger. Now, when we think about critical infrastructure as well, let us not only think about those aspects of physical infrastructure that we have to think about. Medicine is something that is now more increasingly practiced, whether through telemedicine or remotely, utilizing the skills of experts. Just imagine that you're on the operating table and that feed gets hacked into, and the operating doctor, the attending physician, is given the wrong information or is being guided in the wrong way because the original expert has been cut off the feed. And so it creates that level of anxiety for us when we choose to use these facilities. Additionally, when we think about our utilities, telecommunications, energy, here in Jamaica, we don't have to worry about winters. But just imagine you live in a cold country and that gas pipeline or that heating source gets compromised. There are significant challenges. Now, the industrial control systems that we use as a society are susceptible to being hacked. And so when we think about even JPS and your prepaid electricity setup, or even your new meters that they can now stay in the office and read whether or not it's been tampered with, etc. These are all online. And if we take it a step further, we think about pacemakers and other medical devices that we depend upon that form a part sometimes of our daily lives. Once they're online, they can be hacked. It was in Natanz, Iran, that probably the first act of physically using cyber crimes to impede something took place, where the Stuxnet virus was introduced into the Iranian nuclear plant, and the end result was that the Iranian nuclear program was set back almost 10 years. We do not need to get into the why, but when we think of critical infrastructure, think about it. Your critical infrastructure, whether it be in transportation, in industry, in commerce, in medicine, in any field that you can think about it. Cybercrimes today has made it more difficult to secure these infrastructure, as well as make it more devastating when there is a compromise. If we think about these three aspects of our society, and we think about the impact of cybercrimes, then we can begin to appreciate that for a lot of us, cybercrimes have changed the way we live. And by changing the way we live, it means we're less trusting. However, it also creates great opportunities. You know, think about COVID-19 in Jamaica and think about ends. A lot of small businesses were able to survive because ends was brought online in a critical time frame. But also what it did was open up a lot of customers to challenges, because you're utilizing your credit cards, you're utilizing your debit cards, and these are challenges. So what we have seen is that as far as society is concerned, I know we have been cultured in the physical world. The cyber world is no different. And when you think about cyber crimes, if you follow the assertions of the JCF, there is literally no crime today that is not committed using or facilitated by the internet and internet connected resources. And so what that means is that for us, we not just have smartphones, we have smart and vulnerable phones, because our phones, whether it be Android or iOS, have probably the least amount of security built in of every digital device that we will use. I will touch finally on the Internet of Things, and then I will wrap. Because the Internet of Things is what and we connect them to our cell phones, whether by Android or iOS. But when I do a check across Jamaica, there are hundreds of open security systems being viewed by their owners because it's not properly secure. And so all we need is just that one person who is determined enough to break into a system, and we will get there. So the Internet of Things was created really to facilitate ease of use and comfort. Security was an afterthought for a lot of the devices. Christmas approaches, and so as we seek to get those children those devices, as we seek to spruce up our own appearances with these nice nifty gadgets, think of so in concluding, what we've seen is that cybercrimes are everywhere. It's pervasive in our daily lives today, and it impacts the impact of cybercrime is amplified when they fall victim. We would have seen massive, and we would have heard about it. We would have seen JPS, and we would have heard about it. And it does not stop there, because every single credential that was exposed now exposes the owner of those credentials to potential future attacks. And for critical infrastructure, without them, our daily lives are non-existent. The ability for cybercriminals sometimes makes the ability for us to live as normal very difficult. So cybercrime in as much as we use it, and today are very dependent on internet. We must be wary that cyber crimes are out there. It's not a matter of if.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the question. Now, if you think about the an act of terrorism in the physical world, it's really designed to create fear and to generate sometimes mass destruction. Cyber terrorism is the same thing done in cyberspace, where a hacker or other cyber criminals, and in our world, we have what we call advanced persistent threats. These are organized groups of hackers that are pervasive in cyberspace, and they go after critical infrastructure or high value targets, whether they be individuals or bodies corporate. So the act of cyber terrorism is to focus on that critical infrastructure or high value target with the hope of creating the sort of mayhem based on the concept of terrorism in the physical world that is literally done in cyberspace. So if you think about the Munich Olympics and the taking of hostages, essentially that was an act of terrorism in the physical world. Now, if you think about a country such as Costa Rica, which recently had the entire government being locked down by a ransomware gang, that is cyber terrorism. So nobody physically went into Costa Rica. Not a single shot was fired in anger, but the government was crippled for weeks. So that is cyber terrorism.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. We are encouraged to be entrepreneurs to drive economy and all that forward so that we can advance technology, or new technologies are built every day. Some of these technologies, as you mentioned in your presentation, are built with the purpose of making things easier for everyone involved. The question then becomes, how do we balance that innovation with ensuring that it's secured properly enough so we get that equilibrium of proper security and moving things along?
Thank you for the question. So we're not in any way advocating that we slow the progression of the development of technology. But what we're saying is, insofar as it's possible, then security as a design should be what we implement, which means that our SecDevOps, our security and development operations, must be in tune from the conceptualization stage of your project. Additionally, if you're unable to do that, and let's say you're buying something off the shelf that you want to use, then think about the environment in which you need to use it and try to make the environment more secure. If none of that is available or possible, then you must be very careful of what you do with the technology, what you share with it, and where you go with it. So when you put all of it together, if it's not designed securely and you can't use it in a secure environment, be very careful what you share using it.
One more question, afternoon. In your capacity, as relates to Jamaica and the tracking of criminal activities, could you just give light to how do you approach this as relates to Jamaica?
So the first thing we have to recognize is that Jamaica Cyber Incident Response Team and its members are not above the law. Okay? So nothing we do is a criminally invasive approach to looking at what is there. What we do mainly is to monitor, if you want to put it that way, the Jamaican cyberspace. So, for example, if we were to say .edu.jm and everything with a high-level domain ending there, we can look at that. Now, what are we looking for? We're looking for the security of design of your web application, your website, the transactions that you're doing on it, whether or not it's been compromised. Now, if we find it, these vulnerabilities, whether they are actual vulnerabilities or suspected vulnerabilities, what we do is reach out to the entity. Now, because there is no legal remit for us to say you will fix this vulnerability, we ask nicely and we say, you know, we found this vulnerability, it would be in your best interest to fix it. These are the implications of not doing that. The same thing happens for a breach. Now, because we're not a law enforcement agency, we tend to treat with just about everything that comes through our door. But once we have done the triage or the deeper analysis and recognize that it's a cybercrime, it gets referred to a law enforcement agency, whether the JCF or MOCA, because we can't take it any further legally. And so what we're seeing is that a lot more entities are just simply going online without the necessary due process for securing how they go online. They're collecting people's card data, people's buyer data, and sometimes even without having a need to do so. And the stores of these data, they're not encrypted. There's no backup. It's not secure. There are even companies that use cracked or hacked software to run their networks, and you use your cards on it. So from a Jamaican standpoint, what we're seeing is an increase in vulnerability, not necessarily an increase in cybercrime, but more and more we're having persons report these breaches. And so we're dealing with the aspect of underreporting in that sort of holistic way. The hope is that as entities like Massive, for example, as their breach become public, and persons see that even though they fixed the breach, the ransomware gang still dumped people's credentials on the dark web, then persons will become more circumspect as to how they treat with their clients' data, their company's information assets, and individuals will be more responsible in cyberspace.
Thank you very much, Colonel Sterling. Thank you very much, audience, for those questions. I also think you were trying to find out if there is a nice NOC network operation center where we have monitors and they're looking and going on and so on. See where you're going with that one. Thank you very much. Again, I'd just like to pause to recognize this evening's sponsors, Mrs. Vincent Lewis, BCMG Insurance Brokers, GK General Insurance, Honeybun, and Wesinco. We thank you very much for your patronage. This right, Miss Jake Dacry, thank you, Juliana Dacry, who will introduce the next speaker. Please make her welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It has been an enlightening afternoon for me, and I hope it has been the same for you. Most security professionals agree that humans are the weakest link in the information security chain. As such, cybersecurity is our responsibility. To add to the knowledge already shared, we will engage another expert to share best practices. An expert, that is definitely an appropriate adjective to describe our next speaker. Mr. Delroy Scott is a native of Jamaica with more than 2 decades of experience in information technology. His journey began as a program coordinator of the Information Technology Program, co-sponsored by the Heart Trust NTA. After migrating to the United States, he followed his passion and obtained a Bachelor of Science degree in computer programming and information technology with a focus on Cisco networking. He is a service member in the United States Army within the cyber branch. He successfully completed the Joint Security Analyst course and is a certified operations specialist. His assignment provides an opportunity for him to work jointly with other military branches to protect against current and emerging threats in cyberspace. He's currently pursuing an MBA with emphasis on information technology management. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Delroy Scott.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, to the leadership of University Caribbean, to the group, Cybersecure Consultants. Thank you for having me today. To my fellow panelists, the keynote speaker, Lieutenant Colonel, thank you for having us today. I just want to start off by saying that the keynote speaker really hit on some major points. And I'll start by a point that I decided I would end on, which is the factor of trust. And I heard in his presentation, he referred to that factor of trust, which is very fragile when we speak about the cyber domain. I'll be focusing on digital marketing and the BPO, the business process outsourcing, as a part of the cybercrime and its impact on society. We are aware, based on the topic, digital marketing and business process outsourcing, marketing in and of itself and outsourcing is not new. Actually, we refer to the Gleaner Company, New York Times, different magazines, print media, billboards, television media, radio media, which companies use those mediums in order to market their product, to enhance their product, to to make it be known to the populace and their potential customers. Outsourcing as well is not a new concept to business. It may not have been in the digital space, but in the physical space in our country, and in other countries, especially developing countries, are prime places where you have outsourcing. So you think about the garments free zone, you think about the China, you think about the India that things are outsourced to. And businesses use this for augmenting their operation, to reduce their costs and to increase their profitability. Now, when we add the flavor of digital marketing, which also refers to or coincide with the business processing or the BPO, then we add a different level of complexity. And it is not only an emerging thing, but it's already here and emergent in today's society, where digital marketing is literally exploding, it's coming exponential. Everywhere you go, we are connected. We are living in a society that is definitely connected. And we can see by the rise as well in the amount of BPOs that are now in Jamaica and over the world, where companies are deciding that in order to augment their operation, they need to farm out part of their process to support their customers. Now we look at the digital marketing, we look at the platform, social media. We're going to use social media, and three of the key players in social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Those are some of the key players in social media. And whilst it may start out organically to interact or to connect people, now it is used on a business side for marketing your products. And one of the things that this creates is threats. And this is how we're going to approach this: is what are the threats, what are the vulnerabilities, and what are the attack vectors based on each of these different aspects. So when we look at digital marketing, we look at the threat of hacking, the threat of phishing and social engineering. And when we look at that, we're talking about the infrastructure of the company being hacked. And that can happen as it has been happening with Facebook, where they've been hacked and data has been compromised. And all of this, you as a consumer, we as a consumer, is putting our information out there. When you're registered for a Facebook account, they ask you for so much information. And I heard the colonel saying sometimes it's not really needed. But they ask for this information. You're putting your products on Facebook, you're putting your life on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. And now you're becoming vulnerable, because it's what? It's a shared space. The vulnerability is a shared space. It's global. The proximity now is, you don't wait for seconds. It's milliseconds now that you can connect, and you have limited control in what is happening in the cyber space or the cyber domain. And the attack vector means, how can attackers take advantage of these threats and the vulnerabilities? Which means that people is a primary vector of attack. If I can get someone to click on a link that looks like ncb.jm.com, just by changing a little bit in there, your eyes will not see, because you're used to seeing that in the tagline, and you click on that link, then you now become exposed. The infrastructure is also attack vector. It's the infrastructure of the organization, the personal devices. And I heard the colonel talk about IoT devices. And IoT devices is an attack vector that sometimes is overlooked. We have now our life walking around within our cell phone. For instance, you have a fridge now that is connected to your internet. You have TVs that are connected to your internet. And all these now become attack vectors because they can, as a marketer or somebody selling a product, you have smart TVs now that have Facebook, that have literal processors that can do computing on it. So you can browse the web on your TV. And that pushes, and that now becomes an attack vector that somebody can attack your home network through your TV because it's connected to your Wi-Fi. And by doing that, you possibly be able to find what they call a pivot in the cyber domain to the organization, which is why the impact of that is that now organizations are literally giving you security products to protect their interests, because now you are connected to their network. They want you to be connected. They want you to be protected. So in this, we have to look at how do we protect ourselves in that digital space as things are being marketed to us and we are marketing to other people. One of the other things that we look at in this domain is the fact of defacement. Defacement is where an attacker can intercept what you are putting out there and put a whole different message to your potential consumers or those who are looking at what you're marketing. And just imagine for a minute that you are on your Twitter feed and you are marketing your product on the Twitter feed, and you're thinking that you're marketing, as you said, a product or a Louis Vuitton or a Da Vinci or whatever it may be. But attacker defaces or compromises your account, and what is going out there is pornographic material, or one more serious, child pornography. So the impact to that is, how do we now protect against ourselves, and are we held liable for those things that come from our account? And based on the summit on Digital Marketing Academy, they project that over the next 5 years, the value add from digital marketing will be lost to a tune of $5.2 trillion because of these type of attacks, because of these type of compromise in the digital space or cyberspace. We look at the business process outsourcing, the BPOs. And when I think of the BPOs, all I hear is data, 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 data. Whether it be your personally identifiable data or your personal health data. We don't think about that too much. Or your payment information. All your data is stored somewhere, and I ask anyone, do you know where it is? When you are speaking to someone over the phone and they're asking you for your TRN, or they're asking you for, here in the United States, your social security number, do you know where they're putting that information? We don't know. So our data is somewhere that we have no control over. So the attack vectors here is the fact of, again, hacking, malware, DOS attack, which means they deny the service, or importantly, data leakage. When you give your data to the organization, you don't know where it's stored, but it can be shared among BPOs, or what happened, there's a leak of data and an increase in potential harm to the society, because now that malicious actor has your information and can call you and social engineer you based on some limited information that he has of you and try to gain more information. I'll give you one example. They'll call, they'll know that you're from a certain area, and they'll call and try to social engineer you to get more information and tell you to do different things. And then you're caught in a trap because now the whole trust factor, they build that trust to say, oh, it's me, I know you. And now you start to trust that person. I had a experience where someone called me and said, oh, we have some money for you at Western Union. All you need to do is give me your bank account, go to the Western Union, and I'm going to tell you what to do. How did they find out my phone number, all of that stuff? This is a part of the fact that because of the outprocessing of the service, the outsourcing of services, my data is where I don't know. And my phone number, my email, my address, a simple Google search can find that out. So how do we protect our PII? And with that, you're talking about we have to get into standards. So in Jamaica, there's BPOs in Jamaica, but we don't deal only with Jamaica customers. In the United States, there are business processing entities, but they don't only deal with customers in the United States. So there are now standards that have to be adhered to. The PCI standard, payment card information standard, you have to know that. So now that increased cost to that entity to secure the information is going to pass on to the consumer. Or you talk about the GDPR, which is any handling of data in Europe. You may be in India, but you're dealing with customers' data in Europe. You have to abide by these standards. And with all of that, you have added cost. And the trust factor, again, is going to come into play. One of the vulnerabilities that we talk about with the BPO is the fact of the emerging technology. So you have new technology coming out. You have old technology that possibly still being used in that entity. What do? Do you go over to the new technology once it comes out? And you're open to what we call a zero-day attack, because now a new software or a new piece of equipment comes out and you're going to upgrade your systems, but you don't know what are the vulnerabilities yet until somebody goes ahead and try to attack your system or your software. So you have to play what do we do in order to stay current. With the emergent, especially of the pandemic, a lot of persons now is going to remote work. So as a BPO, you're going to have your employees work from home, but they're on their own personal networks connecting to the BPO's network. How do you secure that? Do you send them through a secure channel? That's now an additional attack vector for a malicious actor. So then the vectors in here are the people, the infrastructure, as well as the personal devices. Because now if you have a lot of remote workers working on in the BPO, you're going to have to ensure that you have policies in place in order to ensure that they connect securely to your network and not compromise the infrastructure of your organization, henceforth compromising the data that you're storing. The other piece of it when you talk about cybercrime is that you have a BPO processing things for multiple organizations in one place. So it's more like what you call a honeypot. So you have an attacker could come into a BPO wherever it is stored, maybe on the cloud, maybe dispersed over geographic location, and he has access to Amazon information, he has access to Bank of America information, he has access to Scotiabank information, possibly just at one location. So the impact of this is, do you go ahead and access your Scotiabank account from your phone, give them your information, or do you want to stick to going into the bank and filling out the deposit slip and waiting in line for an hour or two? It is important to note the example here of what the impact of a cybercrime as it relates to business process outsourcing. And we all remember clearly throughout the pandemic, anyone wanting to travel to Jamaica had to go online to jam COVID and fill out their information. You put in your passport number, your date of birth, where you're going, how long you're staying. And that was not handled by the local company, it was handled by Amber Group. And we all know what happened there. There was a data breach. Where was it stored? How long was it stored? What happened with that data? So now you have the fact of the persons who have already filled in the information wondering, should I do it again? Can I do it again? Because now there is that broken trust. And when the trust is broken, then there's a great impact on the society. We look at, finally, how do we have strategies to mitigate, against cyber crime, because it's hard to eliminate. So awareness, things like these that we're doing today, public education, and for us, we have mandatory training. So we have to keep up to date with what is going on in the cyber world. What are the best practices that we are having? What do we need to do? System patching and upgrade. We've got to make sure that our systems are properly patched, systems are properly upgraded. System hardening, which means that we're going to ensure that we have policies in place to ensure there's security on either side of our infrastructure. We have the right firewalls in place at the different places. And I said the circle of trust must be intact. Thank you for your time. Do you have any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Scott. At this moment, we're going to use the mic. Very sorry about that. Thank you very much, Mr. Scott. At this moment, we're going to pause. Are there any questions for Mr. Scott? Mic check, mic check. Mic check, mic check. Any questions for Mr. Scott? One of the things, as he spoke, something, I got a tweet that I was selected by Elon Musk as one of the 1,000 persons for a giveaway. I'm not that lucky. But when you look on the name on the Twitter handle, it's E and the number 1. So if you're not reading, you think it's Elon, and you go and press that. So that's the kind of thing you're talking about when you're interfacing on the net. You have to be vigilant. These are the little things you have to look out for. When you go and you type in your web address, you look out for that HTTPS. That's your website. If you're learning, learning. So we hope, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, that when you leave here today, that the attitudes will change, the skill will change, and of course, you will have an increase in knowledge. At this moment, I'm going to invite Mrs. Kellyanne Dixon. There is no affiliation, please, okay? No affiliation. Who is going to introduce our brand promotion representative. Please give her a round of applause.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So we are privileged to have a few of our sponsors sharing in our presentation this afternoon. It is my honor to introduce the GK General Insurance representative. Jordan Tate is the Assistant General Manager of Technical and Broker Services at GK General Insurance Company, a wholly owned subsidiary of Grace Kennedy Limited. Jordan has experience in the property and casualty insurance industry exceeding 14 years. Throughout these years, he has worked extensively across the business with areas of expertise spanning across commercial underwriting, reinsurance, data analysis, product development and pricing, strategic planning, change management, project management, microinsurance, enterprise risk management, business continuity planning, and innovation. Jordan holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree in from Furman University in Green. Help me welcome our sponsor, Jordan Tate.
Good afternoon, everyone. All protocols observed. Really appreciate the opportunity for us at GK Insurance to come and provide some insights into some things that we have been doing to help persons get a little bit more comfortable as they navigate the cyber insurance or the cyber space. Now, as a lot of the persons before would have presented, and a lot of person who is moving the slide to kind of just go forward to the next one for me, please. That there are a lot of things happening on our internet, right? So we know that there's growing activity. Many of us are engaging in various activities on the internet, but there's also a lot of persons who are also doing bad things. They're trying to hack. In fact, they're even getting better at it. And so ultimately, we have to look at ways in which we can protect ourselves. Now, the next slide will highlight again something that we've been talking about, Internet of Things. And the next slide shows that. And again, just to highlight that everything is fully interactive. As was mentioned before, our phones are connected to our homes, and our homes, everybody wants to have a smart home. Everybody wants to be able to tell Siri what to do, right? To tell Echo what to do, right? And so ultimately, this is where we're moving. Now, in addition to the items that were mentioned before, as to how we mitigate against the things that may happen to us on the internet, again, remember some of those. Training is important, having systems and upgrading those systems, as well as having proper maintenance in place, but it's we need to update and add different patches and so forth. In addition to that, what else can bring comfort to us? And this is where insurance comes in. So I'd just like to highlight in the next slide, and if somebody's moving the slides for me, or about 2 slides above there, let's look at some of the potential risk or potential things that can happen to us. And then we go to the next slide after that one, that we want to help to protect ourselves from, and what insurance can help us with. Okay, there we go. So one of those things is the cost of recovery of that device or item. So when we go on a cyber attack, that device, that data may ultimately be unusable again. And so that's a cost to us as an individual, that's a cost to us as an organization. So we would need to have some protection to protect against that. There's also the need or the cost that may arise for us to notify our customers. And we see that happen with different companies, right? So a breach happens, and the first thing that they have to do, and it's required by law, that they have to notify their customers that a breach happened. That takes money, takes time. Also, there are systems that we need to put in place to ensure that, okay, I had one attack, but am I now vulnerable to multiple attacks? So do I need to now have a monitoring system to make sure that I get alerted if such should have occurred? Then there's also loss of revenue to that business. So people may not be confident in associating or doing business with your entity because you had a breach and it was public. Then they maybe also need a cost around forensic investigation. So find out how it really happened. Maybe it was somebody internally who caused some of the issues to happen, or was it somebody else? And then there's a legal cost fees that must mount now to defend your case. And then there's a PR to help build back confidence in your brand that this won't happen again and that you're a good, trusted entity to operate with. And then obviously, many of us hear about ransomware, which is now cyber extortion. And many customers are held at ransom, or their data are held at ransom and can't be released until they pay over some amount. So these are some of the things that people ultimately grapple with. Now, how does insurance help us? So the next slide shows some of the reasons that may lead to a breach. And, somebody highlighted a while ago that people are one of the weakest links, right? So we see here that accidental disclosure is one of the easiest ways in which an entity may come under cyber breach. So somebody click on a link, you can come to your phone, right? And suddenly you think it was from somebody or something that you should have clicked on, ask for some information, and look here. Just like that, they open up that entity to an attack, right? Something that also are very high risk includes maybe a device that was lost, or it could even be something similar as being a memory stick being injected into a machine, and ultimately that may also cause something. So these things can happen so easily. Now, the next slide shows some of the industries which are impacted the most. And on top, we have education up there, we have health, right? We have financial institutions, and we have retail. Those are some of the 4 main industries that get hacked on a regular basis. And the next slide will show us some of the areas in which companies need support in the most way when there's an attack. And top of mind is incident response, right? As the next slide shows. Most persons, most entities need assistance with incident response. What does that mean? This means that once an event happens, how do they ultimately, 1, stop it from bleeding, 2, notify their customers, 3, ensure that they are maintaining the necessary protocols based on regulations. Now, as mentioned in our previous speakers, we have growing and developing regulations in this area of data protection. I mean, Jamaica has its own data protection act, but because we're operating in the cyber world, which means globally, we're interacting with people or different nationalities who they themselves require us to also be compliant with other data protection acts globally, right? Which also has far-reaching implications. So as a result of that, what are some of the things that we have to do then to be able to protect ourselves? So this is what insurance, or this is how insurance will help us. So carrying a little bit closer to home, and the next slide shows us now some of the institutions here in Jamaica, and we hear about Massey recently, but there have also been banks, there have been hotels, we know, have been data breaches. We've had attorneys, we even have government agencies. So we talk about, Jamaica, CARES, and others who have ultimately been breached. Now, let's talk a little about our product. So if we jump 2 slides, we see the benefits of an insurance product which is currently available in the market. So 1, it helps to cover business interruption. So again, the cost that the customer may incur because of not being able to continue to do their business, the income that they will lose from it, or they may have to have additional increase in costs to operate. That's covered under the policy. Also, the recovery of the physical asset or restoration of the data that may be lost. Then incident response. And remember, incident response is the most critical thing that needs to happen post a loss. And so our insurance policy or product has this in place. and also provides in cost or money to be able to him to fight defense. And this may be legal, maybe independence or individual that may come against us, but also regulatory fines that may come up against us. And let's just go to the next slide, the next two slides, that now looks at the personal product benefits. Again, it helps to provide support for costs related to cyber attacks. So one may have to replace their data, replace the device, but also ransomware. And this is for individuals, right? Where again, they may be victimized and ultimately have to pay a ransom, demanding back their data. Identity theft protection. So when somebody's data is lost, and as was mentioned before, it's out in the web, we can get it. Who knows where that data can pop up eventually? So how do we protect that data where it is somewhere else? And that person's identity can be maintained, right? And then also that person has the ability to provide those recoveries. Now, if we jump to the next slide, it helps us to now appreciate how easy this process is. So we appreciate that as insurance, people don't get up every day and say, okay, I want insurance. What insurance is out there for me to buy? So we've created a product that is easy for persons to get. That way, if you are an existing insurance holder or policy holder, you can get this product by just asking it to be added to your existing insurance policy. Simple as that. Very little information required. And for many businesses, they may be hesitant because some of the forms that people have to complete to be able to get a cyber insurance in place sometimes can be very intimidating, asking a lot of technical questions. And so we provide a very easy format that they can just attach to their policies. Additionally, there are very easy limits that they can get, very comfortable limits that they can get. And obviously, if they need to increase, then they can do so. What about the claims process, which the next two slides would show? So we have a 24/7, 365 days response time. Because we know that when somebody's been attacked in cyber, you can't wait till your insurance company start working at 8 a.m. You need to be able to get your response immediately on. And so by having this hotline in place, it allows persons to immediately get the information they need, and also to talk with experts who can help them to guide them through the process. So what we want to just reiterate is that, yes, it may seem very scary. Yes, it may seem that, this is, why am I getting into this space? Should I hold back, as one comment said earlier? What we're here to say is that, no. Put the proper mitigations in place, as outlined before, and on top of that, utilize insurance to help to give you a peace of mind so you know that you can be fully protected. Thank you for listening to me today.
Thank you very much, Jordan. A lot of Jamaicans are of the opinion that insurance and I'm trying to be politically correct here, that insurance, you know the word, right? And it's not a good thing. But recently I became a student of insurance. I did a few courses at the College of Insurance Professionals, and I've learned a lot about insurance. And I now think that insurance is one of the best things something to humanity. And if you are in business or in individual, renters insurance, whatever it is that you have, insure it. Insurance is really good. That point, Jordan, and importance of you having the attacks are so prevalent. Having cyber insurance is important. At this moment, we're going to pause with the talking so we can be entertained by Mrs. Nigen Brown.
Good evening. To dream the impossible dream, to find the unbeatable force to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go. The unridable road to love, pure and chaste from afar, to try reach the unreachable star. This is my quest to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for that heavenly cause. And I know if I only be true to that glorious quest, then my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I lay to my rest, my rest. And the world would be better for this, that one man, scarred and covered with scars, still stroll with its lessons of courage to reach the unreachable star, to reach the unreachable star.
Wow. Thank you very much, Mrs. Yes. Thank you very much, Mrs. Brown. That was really, really beautiful. Give her another round of applause, please. It was really beautiful. At this moment, I'm going to be calling on Miss Anita Rambali. Miss Anita Rambali, who is going to introduce the rose among the thorns for us. Please make Rambali welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed the entertainment segment as much as I did. Give it up again for Miss Brown. Allow me to introduce our next speaker, Mrs. Colleen Brown, as you heard, the rose among the thorns, who is an experienced IT professional and a graduate of Hampton High School. She holds a bachelor's in computing and information technology and a recently minted master's in cybersecurity. She is currently the director of operations at iConsult Jamaica. Author, writer, mentor, speaker, and certified Christian life coach are some of the other titles she wears. A devoted Christian, Colleen constantly pursues herself with the help of God and is oftentimes not perturbed by life's events and limits, for with God, all things are possible. She is guided by Philippians 4, verse 13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And Luke 1, verse 37, for with God nothing shall be impossible. Her personal mantra, be blessed, be a blessing. Please welcome Mrs. Brown.
Good afternoon, everyone. Right, I'm going to follow the trend and say all protocols observed. All right. So today I'm here to speak on cybersecurity in education. All right. And I want to first start off by giving a definition of cybersecurity. So we've heard information shared by our other speakers. Can't remember hearing a definition really. So I'm a definition person, I'm sorry. So I'm going to just jump into that. Seems a little weird, the third speaker giving the definition, right? But it's fine, not a problem. All right, so cybersecurity is the practice of protecting systems, networks, and programs from digital attacks. These cyber attacks are usually aimed at accessing, changing, or destroying sensitive information, extorting money from users, or interrupting normal business processes. And that's a definition by Cisco, right? And what all of that is saying is that cybersecurity, as our moderator alluded to that fact, is that physical security and cybersecurity should walk hand in hand, all right? And so cybersecurity in a nutshell then looks at keeping all your devices and services secure from outside or cyber attacks, all right? Everybody understands? Okay. All right. And so when I think of cybersecurity, it then leads me to a scripture. I'm sorry, I had to drop that in. And so I just want to share this scripture, and it comes from 1 Peter 5, verse 8. Anybody want to tell me what it is? No? Okay, I'm sorry, I'll just read it for you. And it says, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. Can I get an amen? Bless the Lord. Oh, I'm sorry, we're not church. All right. And so cybersecurity, just as the scripture reminds us there, is that the cyber criminals, they are seeking who they may devour. And October was celebrated as, or every October, I stand corrected, is celebrated as Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So you're like, you just missed it, you know. However, the theme for this year was see yourself in cyber. And I've heard my speakers allude to it thus far, that cybersecurity, just as security in itself, it cannot exclude you, me, you. You have to be involved. It can only work if all of us take an approach, a zero tolerance approach. Can I get an amen? All right. And so cybersecurity can never be a one-man show or a one-man or a one department or a one ministry or a one agency. All right. It involves all hands on deck. All right. And so I'll just jump into the meat of the matter. Cybersecurity, how can you keep secure in education? During COVID-19, we saw many schools jumping online. We had memes and videos going around like teachers talking online. You mean on the line, physically pinning themselves to a clothesline, right? It's a joke. Yes, we can think about it there, but it also shows that, are we prepared for the many knowns and unknowns of the cyberspace? And I am so happy that we have this seminar, this forum to share. It's a twofold approach: education, educating each of us on how to keep ourselves secure, and as well to keep ourselves secure in education. So I received a folder, and one of the flyers in there has, I'm not sure if everybody saw that, the GK, may I borrow your, sorry, thank you. Thank you. Right? I'm not sure if everybody saw this, right? But it has a person in a hoodie. Yes? The cyber criminal is not going to come up to you physically in a hoodie and say, "Hi, I'm the cyber criminal." That's not going to happen. And so we have to educate ourselves in the vulnerabilities that will cause us to become a victim. It's not a matter of if, but it's when that may happen. It sounds scary, but it's the hard truth. All right. And so we have to keep educating ourselves on these threats and how not to become a victim and how not to give away our rights. And so education is expensive. You are doing your MBA. It's not an easy feat. I just finished mine and it cost a pretty penny or two. Right? I'm still paying back. It is expensive. And so as a result of the expenses that we may incur, my apologies, we may try to, cut back on other things. So we don't want to spend so much money on the books, right? So we want to find the free books online, the PDF. I see a sister say, amen, hallelujah over here. But can I tell you that these are just some of those avenues that cyber criminals can use to gather your information. I've heard the speakers before speak about social media. Everybody wants to go live. Everybody wants to share their location. Everybody wants to show the entire family at dinner. Everybody wants to show off the new devices, the IoT devices that they got. Oh, I got the fitness watch. No, I'm sorry. I don't have one. I'm sorry. For more reasons than one. All right. So everybody wants to be the person and to be the popular person. And so we overshare. Every social media platform, we update. So nobody has to call to say, are you home, John? They already know you're not at home. They know where you are. They don't need to call. And so it is, cyber criminals, they're not going to come to you directly in the hoodie and interview you and ask you, date of birth, mother's maiden name, and all these things, the security questions that you may be asked at other institutions. However, they will search through your social media and you will drop hints, Even if you don't drop those physical answers, they get enough information, and we've heard the other speakers speak about it, to social engineer you, to call you, and you think it's somebody that you know. However, They've just searched their whole history online and they have gathered enough information to get the basics and to guess your password or guess your PIN. And so when the best practices are shared, it's not because we have nothing better to do or we think that you are crazy or silly to use your, for example, date of birth for your 4-digit PIN. Why would you do that? Why would you? 9 times out of 10, your driver's license, your ID is with your bank card, for example. If you lose that and you use your date of birth, anybody who finds that and says, let me just try, even if they're not a cyber criminal, the curiosity may overtake them and they decide to try it and then they bingo. And that's why we share best practices and we tell you the simple things. Change your password regularly. Don't share everything online. You don't have to, you can share them, but share them 2 months down the road. You don't have to share now, can share later, right? And so I know that a lot of us are thinking, my God, I did that yesterday, or I was just posting just a while ago. It's okay. We've all made, we've all done those things. And that is why this seminar is important, to educate us and to keep us on our tiptoes, keep us sharp, all right? Technology is your friend. It's your friend. It's here to make your life easier. But are you also going to make it easier for the cyber criminals? That's the question. All right, so you can easily be a target. In education, Mr. Tate, the insurance showed you the spokesperson showed you the figures. Education is a treasure trove. It has so much information, your grades, your personal identifiable information, your date of birth, your TRN, your parents' information, banking information, medical information. They don't need, that's one-stop shopping. It's sad to say, but it is. It's sad to say. And so you can make it easier. So even though the bills, are there and you need to get that book, you have to use your computer to do your assignments. I heard Colonel mention it, crack software. It's bad enough when you personally use a crack software, but then it goes to an organization. Let's not go into that, right? So don't just think that because you're a student or you're the teacher or the lecturer that you're exempt. Anybody that can be used will be used. There's no pardon and there's no sifting. Sifting in the sense that they're going to try maybe the student, and if they don't get through with the student, they're going to try another avenue. So are you going to be that one, the weak link? Are you going to be the one to, oh, come on, write in, have a look? Don't be too welcoming. Nothing on the internet is free. Let me repeat that. Nothing on the internet is free. If it says free, there's a disclaimer. If it says free, there's some fine print. If it says free, there's something else going on that you're not seeing. So think about it. Maybe you need to try another avenue. So when you are desperate, when you are searching for information, don't be too quick to fill out the forms or to share. Oh, sign up and receive this. Oh, sign up and get that. Oh, free trial. You're willing to share that information. Oh, it's just an email address. If anything, I delete it. That's what you think. That's what you think. That's just more information they have gathered. So as students, we like to download free music. No, not anymore. Oh, okay. Use YouTube, right? Oh, sorry, she said iTunes. All right. But cyber criminals know what you like, what we like. And so whatever it is that they can use to reel you in, they're going to use it. So just as you've started to look at getting scholarships and grants and all of that, suddenly you get an email about a grant. Or suddenly you get an email, oh, you've won X amount of money. When did you sign up for that sweepstakes? Think about it. When did you visit this place to sign up for anything? And so phishing is just one of those methods that cyber criminals use. And you know how to identify emails, these phishing emails, the time of day that it is sent. Usually it's in the wee hours of the morning. Usually you hover over the sender and you'll see the real information there where it's coming from. Usually if it says it's coming, let's use, for example, from your school email, and it says so at face value, but when you hover over it, there's some misspelling or something, red flag. The content of the email, it seems personal, but it's generic, red flag. The body of the email, it's urgent. Click now or else. If you don't do this, there's some urgencies. They're trying to get you to click. Yes. So we have to be careful of these things. All right. So best practices I'm going to leave with you. It's not because you've heard them over and over again. Our speakers have alluded to them. And so I can only implore us to keep these in mind going forward. All right. We've heard about the IoT devices, all of these devices that we like, or gadgets to use. If it doesn't need to be on the internet, don't connect it. If you don't have to post it, don't post it. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And please bear these in mind as you navigate your education circle. If you're doing video conferencing, and for example, a Zoom platform, whatever platform it is that you're using, and you need to share your screen, for example, any private information that you had up, close it, or share only what needs to be shared on the screen. All right? Again, utilize your biometric solutions as much as possible, if possible, right? And when I say biometrics, I mean your fingerprint, facial recognition, all of those nice things. We love technology, right? And we like the ease of use. However, we use them with caution, all right? And my last point, again, with IoT devices, because I've heard my audience speaking about these gadgets and devices. If you can segment them on your home network, for example, then that would be the best option. So key devices are on one network, and the other IoT devices that you need to be on the internet, put those on another network. All right? These are my few words. I trust you have been blessed. Thank you for your kind attention. Any questions?
Hi. So thanks for the best practices that you've shared. I just have, I guess, a question in regards to that as it pertains to maybe other devices that we may use. So for example, a laptop, for example, is there like a recommended antivirus, software that we can use? What other security measures can we implement? Because as was said in the presentation, it is the humans usually that are the weakest link in the process. So what are the different measures? I guess outside of the best practices that you've shared as it pertains to devices that we can implement on the devices to help safeguard, ourselves from these cyber attacks.
All right, very good question. Thank you. All right, so Colonel, I saw you look on me when you asked the question. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna say, and we've said it already, antivirus is important, just as insurance is important. However, do not use free trial software or do not use crack software. The reason for these best practices is that, for example, when you're using the old version so let's start with the old version. If it is that there's an upgrade that is sent out by the company, you're gonna miss that update with your cracked software. And so that becomes a vulnerability and you're left in the open. Again, with the free trial, so for example, it's a 30-day free trial. What if during that 30 days, you had no security concerns, but the one time you needed it was just when it expired and you didn't sign up for the paid version? What then? So it's all good and dandy to use these free trials and so forth. And we think we're slick that we can keep doing free trials with 5 different email addresses and all these things. However, what then? And free trials normally does not have the full package. So half of the threats that you would be protected from, it's not covered under the free trial. So what's the benefit? Then you'd have to go get insurance from Mr. T now to get back your devices and your data. Or your data already on the dark web. How do you get that back? For an organization, when they're doing recovery, they'll send out a press briefing and all of that, and they'll deal with the repercussions. But when it's on your personal level, how do you get back all of that has been shared? Many of the attacks now are personal identity, is identity theft. A person using your picture from social media, creating a fake page and selling things with your face, but you don't know not about it in another country. And it's not just it's not just regular people that happening to, it's happening to politicians, to attorney at laws, influencers, anybody really. So I hope I've answered your question. So you're going to upgrade the software? All right, any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much again, Mrs. Brown. I like, I have, from time to time, I send out some little reminders to the team members at work about being vigilant, and if they see something, say something, and so on. But I'm going to send out a reminder tomorrow, and it's going to begin with 1 Peter 5, verse 8. I said, yes, I'm going to use that. I like that, the being vigilant, and vigilance is very important. In fact, when I talk to when I talk to the stakeholders, I always tell them that what causes a lot of us to become the victims of crime is that we are so unaware, we're not vigilant. You see people walking down the road oblivious to their environment, just on the phone, texting or having the headphones. And I think these are what causes us to be the victims of crimes a lot of times. So the vigilance is important, and this is a very, very good scripture, Mrs. Brown. Thank you. It's going to headline my bulletin tomorrow morning. Thank you very much. At this moment, I'm going to invite Mrs. Tracy Ann Blake, who is going to introduce our sponsor.
Good afternoon, everyone. Coming to us next is a handsome and noble gentleman who is currently the Vice President of Operations at BCMG Insurance. He was the head of the broker's operations at Billy Craig Insurance since 2017. During his tenure, he was responsible for leading both the sales and operations team to ensure the highest level of service and customer satisfaction. Before BCIB, he has amassed a wealth of experience across the insurance industry, both locally and internationally. He last served in the capacity as the Assistant General Manager for over 15 years at GK General Insurance. He currently holds a diploma in insurance from the Chartered Institute of Insurance from London. As Vice President of Operations, his core mandate is to provide senior level executive direction for bringing new businesses to the table and to drive the company's brand awareness in the industry. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me make welcome one of our sponsors, Mr. Pete Walker.
Use the other one, okay. Thank you so much for that introduction. If we just get her to do all my introductions from now on. I was hoping somebody knew the protocols and would have done this part for me, so I'm just have to go with the protocols are observed. Thank you all very much for leaving me out on that one. All right, so I have a quick presentation. I think they'll bring it up in a moment. I'm going to take the opportunity to do some sponsorship work, first and foremost. I'm going to tell a little about Billy Craig Insurance Brokers, or BCMG as we're now known. So you can go on to the next slide. BCMG is a conglomeration of two companies. It was MGI Insurance Brokers and Billy Craig Insurance Brokers. Both are very long-standing insurance brokers in the Jamaican industry. And both are family-oriented business insurance brokers. Our focus is insuring other businesses. That's our strength. We partner with companies like GK Insurance and other insurance companies overseas and locally to provide products that our clients will need. I'll talk to you today a little bit more from what the business aspect of insurance and cyber insurance is. We can go on to the next slide. Cyber insurance is one of the most exciting insurance. Yeah, there they are. Those are the two guys. It's William and Tommy, they're good friends and all. And they're wonderful people to work for. You can go on to the next slide. I think Jordan did a very good job of outlining what is covered on a cyber insurance policy before. Great partnership and an excellent product. If you could go on to the next slide. It's quite a bit that can be covered for insurance. You know, a lot of things can happen. We've articulated that in the different presentations. What I thought I would do today, which might be slightly different, is to go through an incident with you. We get a lot of information about what happens, and it's a lot to take on. So it's maybe better we just talk about what happens when you come to work one day and things go wrong. Yeah, so that's a list of stuff you can get for cyber insurance. We went through before. If you see the next slide, you can actually see the detail behind some of this stuff. It's a lot. You know, companies have really tailor-made products to cover as much as you can in the insurance. Don't worry, I'm like 2 slides ahead, so I'm going to just run ahead into the scenario I was talking about. So most companies in Jamaica are, yes, that's the one with all the stuff. Hopefully I can print it off for you. There are a lot of stuff in each area that you can get, and it'll insure you and charge you out the money for it. Don't worry about it. So we can go into the next slide, where you can actually see what a scenario happens. Most companies, as you mentioned before, can't afford a lot of the tools that are out there for cyber insurance. Some of even our largest clients look at the solutions, trying to find the business a balance between security and business. But most people, companies, good cybersecurity antivirus softwares that they've paid for. Some, yes, some, even some of the big names you have out there may not have a full version, but you know, that's what it is. Most of us have backups. Are they great backups? They're okay. You know, we don't all have cloud backups. Some of us stick a hard drive in the server and copy it off at night and then carry it home. But we'll have some sort of backups. And as Jordan has mentioned, it's now become a lot more prevalent as some of us get insurance. What we try to offer is a product that's going to give you some security. You can go on to the next slide. If you ever have the misfortune of coming to work one day and having a cyber attack, that means you've come to work, you've turned on that computer and nothing happens. That is the worst feeling. That's when you're going to need some help. That's the moment where I feel a partner, which is what we try to do, not just sell you a product that's going to sit in the corner, but offer you some support. That's when it's really going to count. We have had this happen to clients, and I can tell you the law enforcement here is actually very good. What they can offer you here in terms of investigation and support, I'd encourage anybody. I know not many people report because it can be, you know, embarrassing as a company when you get hit. You feel like it's your fault, but I would encourage anybody when you go out there, if something happens, report it. It's very important to engage law enforcement in this when it happens. It will happen to us in some way or form. I get reports every week from our attacks that happen. But the minute it does happen, you want support. And that's what we are. You can get on that phone anytime, like Jordan mentioned, 24/7. And as soon as you get on that phone and say, guys, my system is not working, I need help. What happens immediately is a phone call. We have standard support people all around the world, 24/7. So they're always available to you. And this is a part of the product that we will sell to you. So a little higher price than what we'll have out here, but it gives you that support. And when you need it, when you turn that thing on, it doesn't work, and you don't know where to turn, you want somebody you can call. And that first call can cost you a lot of money if you don't have insurance. Because that first call is going to be somebody when you're already on the back wall. If you're on the back foot now and you don't have a place to turn, and you don't have a backup, or your systems are not coming back, you don't know where to turn, that person that you're going to call that time is not the person that's going to charge you $10. They're going to charge you a lot more. So having somebody that's going to say, well, don't worry about the cost. You've bought insurance. You've already prepaid for this. I will take care of the cost. The first thing we do, we get a cyber response team for you. That takes about 30 minutes. From the moment you make that first call to when your first meeting happens, literally speaking, is 30 minutes. So you're talking to people all over the world, depending on your time zone. They set up a dedicated team with you that's going to work through the entire response process. They take over your world. So the minute you feel uncomfortable and question, what did I do wrong? The next phone call you get is, listen, everything's going to be okay. We're going to get some people in your system right now. We're going to check and see where it's going. This happens every day for us. This is something we did on Wednesday, we did it on Tuesday, and we're going to do it today for you. That gives you a reassurance almost immediately that one, it's not your fault. You haven't done anything wrong here. This is, even the best companies have a problem with this. And the reality is what you need now is support. And you're going to need support financially, and you're going to need support through the process. And that's what I found so impressive when I've worked with my clients on this, is the support you get, especially when you are average Joe Limited. You don't have an IT person who has spoken to somebody in Russia, not Russia, who has locked your system down, and you need somebody to now negotiate a ransom, which you don't necessarily want to pay, but you know, it's a business decision that you have to make and look at. If you don't have somebody on your side who has done this again every day, you don't know where to go. And that's the kind of support we offer you. There's a claims adjuster that's appointed you right away, tells you, listen, this is the coverage you had. You saw that nice list before. That's when you appreciate that list, because there's something on that list you're going to need. So every support you have, that first phone call, you don't spend $1. You don't have to worry about it. When some of our clients, and I can't call their names, you know, the privacy is, when that ransomware hits and they've said, well, let's go to a backup. And they click on that backup, not realizing it's also encrypted. And they say, well, we have nowhere to turn. We got to now pay somebody to recreate this data. That's covered. You need to hire a staff of people to come up and re-enter information. Fine. Let's get 50 people in here. We'll pay them for that. Oh, well, you need to negotiate with a person that you don't know. They won't even know that there's somebody else negotiating with them. They will think it's you. They will come in and they will do what you need to be done to get you back on your feet quickly. Recreate information. You need a lawyer. Right away, almost everywhere, there's every jurisdiction except for Jamaica. I think we're getting there now. Once you report an incident, you must engage law enforcement. It's a standard. And they quarterback that for you because you're afraid sometimes, you don't want to say. They'll come in, they'll have those meetings with you and law enforcement, you and legal. And if you think they don't have people here in Jamaica, they have lawyers right here that they'll call and they'll put you on, and you have a whole team supporting you. And that's the difference that you're going to make when you have that financial backing that you're going to need when you have an issue. I'm just putting it out there that what you're going to buy with insurance is peace of mind and support throughout the process. I can't stress on you enough all the things that are going to happen. We'll list some there. I mean, forensic reports afterwards, negotiation with the ransomware people, your PR after the fact. I think we have all spoken about those areas. Every single area is going to cost you money, and you're going to be worried about it, and you're going to be thinking about it all the time. This is going to stop you from having to worry and get you back to being your business as quickly as possible. That's the support we offer you, and I hope that you won't need it, but when you do, we're here for you. All right, I'm going to leave it there. If you have any questions, you can let me know.
Thank you very much, Pete Walker. And it shows that you are very, very knowledgeable in insurance, but I don't know how much you pay the lady to call you handsome. And Peter has reiterated again, ladies and gentlemen, the importance of having insurance and the importance of awareness. And I think a lot of Jamaican businesses have got bought into business insurance and IT protections because they are not aware. And one of the questions I had here, for you, Mr. Sterling, was how could a national cybersecurity awareness program boost the awareness, and how could such a feat be achieved? And I think it's something that we need to think about. How could we get people to be more aware of what are the threats and how can they safeguard their small businesses? At this point in time, I'm going to call upon Ms. Veronica Weber, who is going to introduce our fourth and final speaker. Ms. Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Ricardo Higgins is an IT enthusiast and strategic thinker who uses technology to better the lives of those around him. He is close and digital forensics. He also holds a Bachelor of Science in Communication Technology and a number of networking qualifications. And the CCNA Cybersecurity. He has worked in the networking industry for the past 10 years and has been an information security administrator for the past year. The desire to understand information security was sparked by Ricardo's passion for networking and for constructing strong, dependable networks. He wanted to take the time to learn how to secure the networks he has developed or inherited. In order to strengthen the IT capabilities of regional organizations, Ricardo is also collaborating with a multinational corporation that the Jamaican government has had to protect Jamaica's interests. He participates in Live to Give Jamaica, a Christian nonprofit organization, since he's passionate about giving back to the community and to Jamaica as a whole. He also works on different neighborhood-focused projects with his local church. He goes by the adage, teamwork makes the dream work. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ricardo Higgins.
Thank you very much, Ms. Weber. While listening to you, I was wondering who is that young man you were talking about until you called my name. Well, I'm the young man controlling the slide. I just need you to remove the first one. It should be automatic going forward. So good evening, everybody. As was said by Ms. Weber, my name is Ricardo Higgins, and I'm here to present on cybersecurity in the banking industry and its challenges. Now, what we're going to be looking at, first of all, will be defining cybercrime. And I see that the young man has gone ahead and clicked, and it's now running. But let's go on. We're going to be looking at cybercrime, defining cybercrime. We're going to be looking at cybercrime in the banking industry and how can you help as an individual, right? So firstly, we're going to be defining cybercrime. For many of us, we can't imagine a world without the internet. TV and radio was the order of the day back then, right? And that might have shortened the distances between us, between everybody around us. But the internet has removed all of these boundaries. We were once at a place where we had to go out for entertainment. We had to go out for food. We had to go out if we wanted to buy some clothes. We had to go out if we wanted to access information. If we had a project, we had to go to Tom Redcam Library. We had to go to the local library. We had to go through encyclopedias, print a lot of papers, take it home, collate this information and get it together so that we can have a decent presentation. But now everything is at our fingertips. And we have seen where the internet has changed everything we have done. It has also changed the face of crime. So where crime used to be physical, it has now become physical and cyber, right? There have been many definitions of crime in the past, and there are many definitions of crime going forward. But I'm going to take the definition from Lamond in his book on criminal law, which said that crime is anything that goes against that is prohibited under criminal law. When we compare cybercrime to its physical counterpart, we see where cybercrime is relatively younger. In the 1700s, nobody was committing cybercrime because you know, it's a relative young form of crime when compared to physical crime, you know, holding up somebody physically with a knife and taking their money. Cybercrime is different from that, right? But defining cybercrime, and as I said, the young man has gone far in my presentation. You know, cybercrime is defined as criminal offenses that are committed on the internet or in cyberspace or anywhere using technology. He's back. Thank you. Right? So if we move forward, we have now defined what cybercrime is. Any crime committed on the internet or in cyberspace or with the use of technology. And you see me holding up the phone, we know what that means. Now, cybercrime is a $6 trillion industry. In 2021, it costed globally $6 trillion in damages for the combined, everyone that was affected by cybercrime, right? And the banking industry, we see where they were the most affected. In 2018, they were most affected by cybercrime because they had to pay out, on average, $18.37 million in damages to cybercrime because of cybercrime in whatever shape or form. And next in the line was the utility companies, where we see in 2021, Colonial Pipeline was hit by a ransomware, and that caused the entire east coast of the USA to be without gas for a couple of days. The ransomware shut down Colonial Pipeline and nobody could buy gas. Nobody could get gas in their houses because they had to shut off their operations in order to stop the ransomware from spreading. So that I think Colonel Sterling mentioned the infrastructure, cybercrime affecting critical infrastructure. So that was one of the critical infrastructure that actually crippled half of the 22 million people were without gas because of that. Now, as we move on further to some of the challenges that banks face or organizations overall, we see where phishing is a major issue where they are concerned. It is one of the most popular attack vectors in the world. So a phishing attack is when an attacker uses crafty methods to get persons to release information. It might be different from the definition up there, but it's basically the same thing, right? They use crafty methods, basically social engineering techniques, to get you to leak information so that they can use that to carry out their attack. Now, there are 19 different types of phishing attacks, but I'm not going to be looking, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all 19 of them. We're going to look at about 4 or so. Now, the first one is email phishing, where you get an email that says, hey, click this link and reset your password for your iCloud account, and you use an Android phone. I've gotten that many times. That is a phishing email. Now, if I had an iPhone, I might have clicked that link because my thing got compromised. Oh no, I have to change it, you know? But luckily, I don't click links, none at all. And I didn't have an iPhone, so I was safe. The other type of phishing is spear phishing. Now you notice these are, it all has to do with throwing out your line and trying to catch them. Spear phishing is a targeted attack that targets like the chief accountant, where they send an email that says, download this invoice from such and such a company. This invoice it says invoice.exe. So when you download that, that is going to be installed in your machine. And it might not happen the same time, but once that gets in your organization, it will sit there until it gets command from the command center. So that is another type of attack where they attack specific individuals in certain positions, the spear phishing, HR managers, accountants. Now, the other one is called whaling, where they attack executives, knowing that executives don't like to follow procedures. So they craft a specific email for the executive, and that executive would say, oh, click link, put in credit card information, and then they see a charge on their credit card, 500,000, 300,000, $1 million, and then they start to call IT and inform IT that they have been compromised. But that is another type. And the other is smishing and vishing, where they use SMS and voice messages to basically get information from you. Now, what this on the screen now is an attempt that was made by threat actors a few years ago, where they crafted a very, decent message to say NCB 20th anniversary and sent a link, click for your gift. Now, NCB had to send out an advisory that this isn't them, but I can imagine the amount of persons who clicked that link, gave their information to the persons and actually lost money because of this attack. Now, the phishing attacks during the first quarter of 2022, 23.6% of global phishing attacks targeted financial institutions. So 23% of phishing attacks targeted financial institutions, and 20% was web-based services. Now, as we move, we now understand the dangers of phishing, if even a little bit. Now we'll move on to the big boy, the ransomware, where almost all or the previous presenters spoke about. Now, ransomware is an attack that involves the threat actor locking you out of your information, locking you out of your access to your information, your computers, and encrypting the information. So even though you can see the information, you cannot touch it because it's encrypted, it's changed into another format that the designer of the ransomware desires. So you now need a decryption key to get back your data. And this is when they approach you and say, hey, you have to pay 75 Bitcoin. And but last year, Bitcoin was worth 60,000 US dollars. So you would have to pay about 5 million or so 6 million US dollars to get your data back from the ransomware gang. Now, this is an attack I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. It's terrible. I worked in a bank in 2020 that was hit by ransomware, and I can tell you, it's not pretty. But on average, it takes at least 6 months for a victim of ransomware to fully recover, even with insurance. So get your insurance. So it takes at least 6 months to get back on your feet. And I saw that happen with my own eyes. And it actually, the threat actors actually requested 5 million US dollars for the decryption keys for the ransomware. Of course, they had a robust backup system, so they could recover all their data, but it took a while. Now, the ransomware phishing attacks cause 54% of all ransomware attacks are as a result of spam or phishing. So you see where they are related. The phishing and the ransomware, 54% of all attacks are caused by phishing attacks. So how can you help as an individual? How can you help to protect your organizations and the interests of the organization? Well, you can play your part. Adhere to the policies and procedures of these organizations. And as I spoke earlier about the executives who don't like the 9-character passwords, it's too long. Make it shorter for me. I'm an exec. You have to adhere to the policies, because if you don't, these are some of the things that will happen. Your passwords will be easy to guess or easy to crack, right? And threat actors will eventually break them and get into the system and do damage. Right? The next thing you can do is be security conscious. Make security a part of your daily lives. If it's not in your organization, make it personally. Make a personal make it personal so that you don't click on links, you don't go certain places on the internet, you don't do certain things, you don't release too much information. As the previous speaker said, don't put out too much information, be security conscious. And lastly, report strange activities. I received a message on Instagram about 2 weeks ago. Luke, I don't remember the name, but I got the request. But because I'm in the cybersecurity circle, I know that these people are scammers. So I accepted, and he said, hey, you want to make $800,000 now? I'm gonna say, sure. How? Just give me account information and I'll transfer the 800. I'm like, just like that? He said, yeah, man, just give me your username and password. I'm like, okay, what about my account number? No, man, we don't need that. We need your username and your password. Oh, why? Our system works that way. That's how our system works. Okay. All right, then. Just cross my name off your list because I'm not giving you my username and password. And he cleared the chat and hid it and it disappeared. Luckily, while I was speaking with him, I was taking screenshots because I wanted to share it with the community. And I did that to let them know what's happening. So these are some of the things. You have to be security conscious and report things, report these type of people. Thank you very much. That is the end of my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Ricardo. You must have done an excellent presentation, Ricardo. Very clear, very clear. No questions. Thank you very much. And I particularly, I like that I've learned the new term whaling, that I knew about the fishing, but now I understand whaling is going to go for the executives. And I do have a team of executives that I have to work with. So from time to time, I have to remind them when they travel what to do, because as executives, they get a little bit, yeah. So I'm going to go back to them and remind them that I don't want them to become victims of whaling. Thank you very much. All right, so at this point in time, I'm going to invite Mr. Kirk Edwards. We're going to have a testimonial from Kirk. Not that kind of testimonial, Mrs.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. And like my predecessors, all protocols observed. So I've heard about phishing, whaling, selling your information on the dark web. And it brought me back to 15 years ago. That's the reason why I'm standing here now to give my testimonial. I don't like to call it a testimonial because it happened to be one of the worst times of my life. And so it started out on a very nice Saturday morning, getting ready to go to the barbers like I usually do. Stopped on my way at the ATM to withdraw some funds so that I can pay for my haircut. Now, having gone to the machine, I inserted my card, put in the amount that I wanted to withdraw, and the card came back with a slip, and the slip said, insufficient fund. Now, I was kind of concerned because I remember that I got paid the Friday. It was a Saturday morning. I had gotten paid the day before, and I always have funds in my account. So I put the card in the machine and tried it again. I got the same thing. So I decided to do a balance inquiry to see what was happening. Now, when I did the balance inquiry, to my shock, came a balance of $0.00. Now, I wanted to laugh. I wanted to cry. I wanted to faint. I wanted to scream. But I did none of the above. What I did was to ask myself one simple question. How? I'd gotten paid the day before. So I took out my phone and I called the bank. A young lady answered, and I told her exactly what was happening. And she said, just hold on for a second. She took about 3 minutes and she came back and she said, sir, are you in England? I said, what? She asked if I was in England. I said, no, I'm in Montego Bay. Bay West, for the persons who live in Montego Bay, know that Bay West is very noisy with the taxi men, everybody blowing them on, and everybody talking patois. So I just put my phone out there and said, listen, I am in Jamaica. So she asked me to hold on for another 5 minutes. She came back with her manager, and the manager said, sir, I want to inform you that your card has been compromised, and your person or the person who have stole your information is in England. And a matter of fact, they are in Tesco. And Tesco is a very large supermarket in England. They're now in Tesco using the card. I'm going to shut it down for you. I didn't know what to do at the time. So I took out my credit card and I said, why don't you go ahead, seeing that you're in the process of checking, and go ahead and check my credit card as well. And can you believe that my credit card was also compromised? I was very quiet. The gentleman said to me, you need to come into the bank Monday morning to give a formal report. So I said, so who's going to pay for my haircut now? Because that was my main question and my main concern, because I have already taken the haircut and I had zero cash on me. So I went into the bank, and long and short of it is that I got back a part of my fund. But that's not my main concern. My main concern out of all of that was that I have done nothing differently in terms of having my card in my wallet, going to the machine, using the same machine, withdrawing the same funds the way I withdraw my funds. The only thing I do now differently is to check my account every single day. Now, prior to this, I am telling you that I could easily be robbed by the bank if the bank decided to take from my account $5 per week or even $5 per day. I, as a man, would not know the difference. My wife, on the other hand, would be very different. If you take 1 cent out of her account, then she can tell you. So now I have to adopt her style and penny pinch and watch my funds. But the question that I ask myself is this it? How is it that I can protect myself from this happening again? And I asked the gentleman at the back, so how did this happen? And he said, well, they just clone the card. And it is something that they do. And this was 15 years ago. Now, can you imagine now that everybody is educated, the scammers are now 2.0, and everybody is online, and everybody has a smartphone, and everybody knows about phishing, and everybody knows about whaling, and everybody knows everything. And so I'm now left to think that I am a victim. No, I was a victim. But how do I protect myself from being a victim tomorrow or even today? Now, if I can find somebody who can answer that question for me, or who can tell me exactly how they would behave going forward in a situation like this, then I'm all ears. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kirk. I'm very happy to see that you got a haircut today as well. That means you were not being hacked again. Thank you very much. At this moment, I'm going to invite, I think, the presentation of gifts. Who's Christine? That's Mrs. Bruce again to do the presentation of gifts.
Thank you very much. That was quite an experience, Kirk. I need to start checking my account myself. If they took money out of my account, I would know either. Yeah, I know. All right. We have had a really very good presentation this afternoon. Going into evening, thank you so much. Thank you so much We do appreciate, give a round of applause to all our presenters and especially to those who have stayed with us online on Zoom. Thank you so much. Quickly, we just want to make a few presentations. We are really grateful for those who have come to share with us this afternoon. And I want to start with Lieutenant Colonel Godphey Sterling. Could you just join us here? We'll have a presentation. Thank you so much. Yes. Our project manager, Kellyanne Dixon, will be doing the presentation to our keynote speaker, Colonel Sterling. For sharing with us on cybercrime and its impact on society in general. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. And Kellyanne Dixon is now making that presentation. Thank you so much. We also want to do a presentation to Mrs. Colleen Brown, Mrs. Brown, who spoke to us on cybercrime and its impact on education. We will ask Asifa Erskine to make that presentation. A round of applause for Mrs. Brown, very engaging and right up my alley. You know, took us to church and back. Thank you so much for speaking to us on that topic. We're also asking Ms. Anita Rambali to come and she will make a presentation to Mr. Ricardo Higgins, who spoke to us on cybercrime and its impact on the banking sector. And, you know, from Mr. Edwards' experience, we know how important it is to be aware and to protect ourselves. Mr. Ricardo Higgins, who spoke to us on the banking sector. Our other presenter is Delroy Scott. He is overseas all the way in Maryland. And thank you so much. We'd have to ship it. Okay, we also want to make a presentation and we asked Tracy to come and make a presentation to our moderator, Mr. Natawa Dixon, who, you know, kept us engaged. Thank you so much for so ably leading us through the proceedings. Thank you so much. We also do have a presentation to Mrs. Stein Boyd. She had to step out, I believe. And also we want to also make mention of our lecturer, Dr. Gwyneth Jackson, who led us through this program, through this course, and has brought us to where we are today, being able to put together this seminar on cybercrime and its impact on the society. We also would like to make a presentation to Mr. Damian Johnson, our IT personnel who has been assisting us in this. We had our challenges, but we were able to overcome them. Thank you so much, Mr. Johnson. We appreciate your assistance. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thanks to everyone who was here with us. We do have the vote of thanks. That will, Jennifer McKenzie will be coming to move the vote of thanks. She will be doing that virtually, so stay tuned for that.
Right. Thank you so much, Mrs. Bruce. As we wait, Mr. McKenzie will be joining us online.
All right, we do have another presentation to make, a participation award to one of our participants, and it is Mr. Milton Smith from our audience who was engaged and asked those strong questions. And our project manager will be making that presentation. And we just, while we get that done, just want to thank TVJ as well for their coverage of this seminar. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here and staying with us through this presentation. We'll have our vote of thanks at this time.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith.
Good evening, everyone. I am Jennifer McKenzie, and I've been tasked to give the vote of thanks on behalf of Cohort 28. I would like to say a big thank you to our moderator, Tanwa Walker, who was very inspiring. Our keynote speaker, Lieutenant Colonel Godphey Sterling, whose presentation was very informative and also seek to highlight to us the cyber crime and the impacts, not only on individual and its impact, but also on body corporate. He also emphasized how cybercrime can make it difficult for critical infrastructure. Thanks to our presenters, other presenters, Mr. Delroy Scott, who has spoken about digital and the BPOs, Mr. Jordan Tate, who is in the insurance industry, Mistress Colleen Brown, who is in the Ministry of Education, Mr. Pete Walker is also in insurance, Mistress Nijen Brown, who gave us a warm entertainment and reminded us that to reach the unreachable, the stars is not impossible. And of course, our lecturer, Dr. Gwyneth Jackson, also our special invited guests. We want to also thank the IT department, the marketing department, and the operations department of the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean. And also we want to extend our thank you to our sponsors, Mr. Vincent Lewis, the Wissinko Group, BCMG Insurance, GK General Insurance, and Onibon. Let me also say thanks to the person who have joined us face-to-face and in the virtual spaces. I do hope that you all would have taken away today the importance of the cybercrime and in going away that it is everyone's business and it is not when, it is not where, but it is when it will affect us. Once again, I want to say a big thank you to everyone who would participate in this seminar for Cohort 28. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mackenzie. I guess when the air condition went off, Colonel, and it was telling us that it's time to get out of here. But importantly, as we leave this seminar, I want you to remember that sometimes we often look at what's the cost of security, but we must also look what does it cost not to have security. As it's very important that security becomes a part of what we do. In fact, every month, the first day every month, Colonel Sterling, I send out an email to all department heads and I say to them, I know you're going to have your department meeting. This month, I want you to discuss this in your department meeting. This morning, I told them to discuss acts of unlawful interference or in aviation. But we try to get it going. The discussion has to be something that we keep going. And cybersecurity does have an impact on the society, and it was a very, very meaningful theme. I must commend the cohort of the MBA number 28. I'm very, very big on education. I see where what it has done for me. I see what it is doing for Jamaica. I must commend you guys. This was well done. You must give yourselves a round of applause. And when I look at the list of the speakers that you were able to pull today, you were able to pull some big wigs. So job well done. Some people here are really, really connected. So job well done, guys. I'm very, very proud. Myself, I'm doing my master's as well. So I know what the rudiments of what you're going through, and I do that. So job well done, team. Keep it up. And I know enough. The gun crime, it is evolving. Once you are online, you are at risk. These nefarious individuals continue to exploit real and perceived vulnerabilities. This was a very good and well-organized seminar. Thank you. And I hope that we leave here, as I said when I started, we said, we hope your ask will improve, your attitude, your skills, and your knowledge. And of course, mine has improved because I've learned so much today. So once again, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for giving me the privilege of hosting you this evening. Thank you again to our wonderful speakers. And thank you to our TVJ. Thank you to our IT personnel. There were some glitches, but we got over them. And I know that this program was well done because there's another Dixie involved. So all the very best, guys, and take care.